Hello everyone, so I'm back with another video. Um, in this video, I want to talk about randomly, um, because I thought I wrote some notes down, but I just didn't. So this is gonna be a random video, without notes or anything like that. So I mean, I was supposed to do another video, but I don't know. I just not in the mood, and just this and that, and I'm just like, okay, let me make a video and let me see if I even publish it, and yeah, that's why I'm doing this video. So I wanted to talk about why my family doesn't identify as Native American. Um, so yeah, that's the topic of this video. And I was gonna come up with some pictures and all this stuff, but I'm not in the mood, and maybe I might redo this video, maybe I'm not, maybe I don't know. I don't know. Okay, so on my dad's side of the family, I mean, I share DNA results, etc., etc., and my dad is full indigenous. He is full indigenous. He is Nawa. His family speaks Nahuatl, and yeah, that's pretty much it. He's they belong to the Nawa culture and lifestyle, etc. So yeah, even though my dad is full indigenous, he does not identify as indigenous. He does not identify as Nawa. He does not practice his culture. So yeah, so because my dad didn't practice his culture, didn't identify as himself as indigenous or as Nawa, he didn't put that label on us. So my dad never talked about race with us. He never talked to us about he never talked to us about how he was indigenous, or Nawa. So basically, that's why I never call myself, and I really don't call myself Nawa, just because my dad never taught me to call myself that. So that's why I don't call myself Nawa. I mean, that's part of the reason I don't, for at least for me, I don't call myself Nawa, even though I am, just because I didn't grow up with that label. So yeah, just my dad, there's many reasons. He has his own reasons for not wanting to practice the culture, the language, etc. I mean, there's no particular reason, but some of the reasons why my dad uh, doesn't identify as now or practices his language and so on. I mean, there's just so many reasons, but he left his family at an early age. He left his family at age 13. He left 13 years old to work, to find a job. He moved to the city because he wanted to find a job, get a job. I mean, my family, we live off the land, so I don't mean to bash. I'm trying to get into his perspective, right? But not a lot of people like living the indigenous lifestyle that they've practiced for centuries. Not all indigenous people want to live that life, and because I've been to their town or their whatever their in that region, and a lot of people don't like that lifestyle. They feel miserable. You see all these, especially in the media, you see like people owning cars, phones, and all this. It's like, who doesn't want to be part of that? So I guess my dad felt a little bit like that. Like, I mean, he didn't even have a TV growing up, so he wasn't exposed to like white people. He wasn't exposed to black people, because where we're from, there's no black people, there's no white people. It's just indigenous. And there's hardly any mixed people. I mean, there's mixed people, but like in other towns. But yeah, we don't live with white people. We don't live with black people or Asian people. However, we are under the rule. Okay, so like my dad, our indigenous people are in we're ruled by the Mexican government. So we're kind of screwed. And I'm going off topic, I know, but like, the Mexican government forces you to learn Spanish. You know, it's a lot of things. You know, the our country was how do you say that, invaded, you know, taken over. We were around the rule of the Spanish Empire, and pretty much nothing has really changed since that. You know, we're still, even though we're not in the rule of the Spanish Empire, we still, you know, the Mexican governments force you to learn Spanish. You know, again, all documents are in Spanish. You know, there's a lot of discrimination, and who wants that? You know, who wants to who wants to live in a world with discrimination? You know, like that. You know, so you have to understand. I don't know, people, like, you guys have to understand like why my dad doesn't like the indigenous lifestyle. Like, it's just everything's against us, kind of, sorta. You know, we're not taught our language. You know, even Mexicans, even in the U.S. Americans aren't. You know, Americans are required in high school and college to learn a foreign language like Spanish, French, etc. But they're not obligated to learn like the native language of like certain California tribes. So I mean, you know, everywhere you face like these obstacles and so on, and like, you know, so yeah, our system is fucked up, but that's how it is. That's how it is. And yeah, so my dad, he didn't really grow up with the culture, you know, because he left really early, so he just didn't practice it, didn't want to practice it. And then, like I said, another reason, okay, so, you know, I said that my dad didn't grow up around white people, black people, etc. So you know, but we still, like I said, we still grew up in the how do I say this, like, in the Mexican system, you know, because they have control over us, you know, just like the American government has control over the Native American. You know, people say, you know, people think you're free because you're on your own land. You're not free, you know. People need to get that through their heads. You're not really free. But yeah, like, sorry, I keep going off topic, but yeah, regardless of that, like, my dad never cared about race. He doesn't care about race, you know, because he didn't grow up around like, you know, black people, white people. So like, to him, it's like whatever, you know, like, his people have always been his people, you know. And then like, he moved to the city. I mean, the city's more diverse. You get white people, you get mixed people, you get a lot of things in the city. But yeah, so like, you know, he doesn't really care about race. He doesn't identify with any race, you know, like, he just doesn't care, you know, basically. So he doesn't care. And then like, he's kind of like, I want to say, embarrassed by his race and stuff. Like, he just doesn't want to be part of it. So that's the two kind of reasons why my dad doesn't identify as indigenous. So that's why he never imposed that label on us. That's why we never identify as indigenous, as Nahua. But yeah, I try to, like, if someone asks me like personally, it'd be like, oh yeah, I'm indigenous. Like, I don't really tell people that. Yeah, I just don't tell people that I'm indigenous, unless it's like kind of like health wise. Then be like, yeah, I'll say that I'm indigenous. But besides that, like, I don't tell people that I'm indigenous. It's not the first thing I talk about. It's not, it just doesn't, like, I don't bring like, oh, I'm indigenous, oh, this and that. No, that's hard. I mean, I hardly talk to people, but that is always like rarely brought up with me, just because my family did not bring race in my life. You know, the first time I learned about race, I made a video about this in my channel, but like I said, it was asking me what race I was, and I was crying because I was taking an exam for elementary school, and I was like, wow, I don't even know what my race is. I already failed the exam, you know. That was my thinking, like, how can I not know my race? No one ever told me what race is, you know. So basically, I was like in 5th grade, and that's how I learned my race. So that's how I learned what label. I put a label on myself because this like Hispanic kid told me what label I should use. Anyways, after that, okay, now onto my mom's side. So my mom, her family does not identify as indigenous because she's mixed. So I am mixed because of my mom, and my mom is mixed because of her parents, and her parents are mixed because of their parents. So basically, I come from a line of mixed people, and when you come from a mixed a background, like a mix of mixed background, you're not gonna label yourself one thing, you know. So like if your grandparents are mixed and you're mixed and your parents are mixed, you're not gonna say, oh, I'm white, oh, I'm indigenous. My parents don't claim, oh, my mom's side, they don't claim white or indigenous because they're mixed they come from mixed people. So if you come from mixed people, why would you put yourself as indigenous or white? You know, like I said, my grandparents are mixed on my mom's side, so that makes me mixed. That doesn't make me white. That doesn't make me indigenous. That doesn't make me black. That makes me mixed. Um I cannot claim, like, how do I say this? A race, ethnicity, because they are mixed. So yeah, I claim, oh, like I claim my, like, because of my mom's side, I claim my race to be as other or mix. People say, oh, other and mix is not a race, and then people, I don't know, when people say that other and mix is not a race, I get kind of annoyed because, you know, and then they start saying, oh, race is made up. Like, okay, race is made up, so then I could choose my race to be other, or I could choose my race to be mixed. You know, so that's kind of what frustrates me, because a lot of people be like, oh, race is in a mix, and then be like, oh, race is made up. It's like, okay, it's made up and it's not a race. Like, no one cares. Like, if I want to identify as mixed, that's my choice. This is how I see it, as a mixed person, you know. So yeah, I don't know, like, it gets frustrating because, like, a lot of people bash mixed people, you know. So it's always bash mixed people being bashed, you know, by other people, you know, by white people, by indigenous people. It's just by other mixed people, you know. People be like, oh, you know, people tell other people like, oh, you look white, so you're white, you know. But then it's like, no, they're indigenous too, you know. They're mixed with indigenous, you know. And then yeah, so I mean, like, for me, my example, like, I identify as indigenous because my dad is full-blooded indigenous, you know. But let's say my dad was mixed, like just like my mom, then I would just claim mixed, you know. If if my dad was as mixed as my mom, like where my dad's mixed, his parents are mixed, his parents are mixed, then I would just consider myself mixed. I wouldn't consider myself um white, indigenous, or black, or Asian, you know, because it would just be mixed, you know. But since I have a full-blooded indigenous family, I consider myself indigenous. I consider myself Nawa, and then since I have a mixed family, um, I also consider myself as other. You know, the first thing that I say is my race is other. My race is mixed. I never choose white. I always choose. I never choose. Like indigenous. I always choose mixed, other, multiracial, and that's it. You know. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, and yeah. So like I said, oh, and my mom, she grew up like in the middle of nowhere. You know, they lived off of land too, even though they were mixed with Spanish. They lived off the land. You know, they didn't like. How do I say this? Like they lived off the land. They didn't have any land. You know, so I know, but that's another story. But basically, like they didn't grow up with TVs. They didn't grow up with fridges. They didn't grow up with cars. You know, the whole thing. You know, so you know, they weren't really into race that much. You know, they didn't dedicate, not dedicate, but they didn't like focus on race. You know, so they never really had to identify with anything, you know, other than mix. You know, they didn't identify with indigenous because they're not indigenous. They didn't identify with white because, you know, they're not white. And like you know, the Spanish got kicked off of our land, you know, long time ago. I don't know exactly why. I don't know. I don't remember. I don't know the exact year, you know, because I don't have it written down. But yeah, they got kicked off a long time ago. So you know, when the Spanish left, or when they got kicked out, you know, whatever, things changed in Mexico. You know, all over Latin America. You know, again, so you know, my parents. How do I say this? My mom's side, like they also didn't focus on race. You know, they never, for sure, they for sure never identified as indigenous or white, you know, because like I say, they're mixed. You know, when you come up from a background of mixed people, you can't really claim a race or whatever because you're mixed. I mean, you could claim a culture or whatever, but not a race, you know. Um, so yeah, that is it. And what else I was gonna say? So I identify. I know I'm repeating myself, but like I said, I identify as other. And I feel comfortable with that. Even though I look more indigenous, you know, I look more indigenous, and even to people I am indigenous, I look indigenous. Because of course my DNA, I have more indigenous ancestry. You know, so since I have more indigenous ancestry, you know, I look more indigenous. You know, because my dad is full-blooded versus my mom, she's mixed. You know, if my mom would have married a mixed person, I would have been more mixed. You know, if my dad would have married full-blooded, then I would have been full-blooded. You know, there's all these scenarios, but I just identify as other or as mixed because I am mixed. You know, because of my mom. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching, and I really wanted to edit some photos and videos on here, but I'm lazy. And yeah, I'm kind of like in nature right now. I don't know. I just um, need to take like a. I need to take like a walk or something. Part of therapy. They tell you, oh, do this, do that, find your coping skills, and so on. So. I'm trying. And I was like, oh, let me make a video, you know, to feel more comfortable being outside. So yeah, I was like, oh, I feel more comfortable if I record a video. I feel more comfortable being outside if I record a video. Okay, and that is it. Thank you for watching, and I hope I didn't leave anything out. I'm sorry, this video is not scripted.